Hi people, it's Archivist here, and today I wanted to talk some more about Anthem and also the power of YouTube and social media. And what sparked me to talk about this topic was a recent headline where it's transpired that Anthem's physical sales are half of Mass Effect Andromeda's in the UK, when of course just looking at the first weeks that the games came out. So this is a case of, as I personally see it, where Anthem had immensely bad press about it throughout that early access period. Even before that, no one was really impressed with the VIP demo. And word of mouth spread, and I think opinions now range from, I think at best, people who, to be fair, a bit like me, can enjoy the game but need it to improve before it's fully realised, versus people who think it's the worst thing ever and is everything wrong with the gaming industry and just another black mark against EA if they didn't have enough already, right? But it's really fascinating to see nowadays how much impact YouTubers and streamers have in terms of the success of games and that level of power. Because I think something that I've noticed is particularly effective is that it's not just a mob of people crying out and saying it's a terrible game. There are those people, and they do exist, there's no doubt about that, but I've really seen the rise of incredibly articulate people who can absolutely dismantle a game and put it in such a way that you can listen to what they're saying and it's impossible to conceive that they are wrong based on the strength of their argument, and it's very hard to imagine anyone who has any kind of other choice buying the game after listening to that video. And as time is going on, people are far less influenced by traditional means of advertising, maybe just something that plays on TV or something you see on a bus, and are far more likely to make an intelligent purchasing decision based on an independent reviewer as just another gamer who happens to have played it and has no true investment in the success of the game. They just want to be giving their strong, independent opinion of the game and maintain as much integrity in the process as possible. Now, this is of course not to say that YouTubers cannot be reached. Of course, anyone is susceptible to corruption if the right price is paid, though there are plenty of people who are also sort of paragons of virtue in terms of their ability to stay entirely honest. Though I think in some people's cases, the terms honesty and hateful are more synonymous than they should be. And it makes me really fascinated by how marketers have to look at the approach they take now, because it's not just about getting your trailers out there, it's about getting to these influencers and trying to get in there early. And it's kind of really curious to see EA do this incredible tactical strategy with the likes of Apex Legends, where they released it to almost no pre-release information. In fact, I think the only information there were a few leaks that came out. And then they got all these popular streamers together and got them to all talk about the game at once, and it became immensely successful. Of course, the fact it's free to play helped, but it just blew up. Apex Legends, this unknown IP that, okay, was loosely attached to Titanfall, but you wouldn't know that just from the title of the game. But then you have Anthem, where the game was picked up by a lot of these popular streamers and YouTubers and absolutely dismantled, and it has created the opposite effect, where this game that was in the traditional sense marketed very well, I mean there was even that fantastic live action trailer, but it was traditionally marketed very well, but the new wave media absolutely blew it apart, and you can see now that that has had a very strong effect. But then even when it comes to independent sources, you can have sort of integrity called into question. IGN, for example, I think for the longest time have been accused of taking backhanders. And I think what I suspect, I have no proof of the absolute truth, but what I suspect is that although they don't receive actual monetary bribes to give games better scores than they might have done otherwise, they need to maintain strong relationships with publishers and developers so that they can continue to get that early access, so that they can supply preview content for their games. And even if you don't have anyone explicitly saying, if you talk badly about our game, we're going to blacklist you, it's sort of implicit in the whole thing. So it can be hard to trust some of these bigger conglomerates. I mean, it happened so many years now, but I always remember that GameSpot situation where a reviewer was actually fired for giving a bad review of an old game now called Kane and Lynch. And I think ever since then, people have remembered that and thought, we can't trust these people, we can't trust them. They should not have done that. The damage that has done, and people have not forgotten about that even years on. And I kind of thought to myself, as someone who's played Anthem, would my opinion of the game have been stronger had I not had all these videos talking about the game poorly, if I had simply come to like my own judgments on the game? Like the loading screens, for example, there was a lot of talk about loading screens going into the game, and it worried me because I don't have a lot of tolerance for that kind of thing. And I think I heard a lot about it, and when I saw them, I thought, oh, here are the loading screens. Oh, it's another one and another one. But then I thought about it and think, I have played other games recently that have had quite long loading screens. Maybe not as frequent, but have certainly been in this territory. And yeah, I didn't really even notice it. But because it had been pointed out, I couldn't help but notice. It's a bit like when someone says, have you noticed your breathing? Or have you noticed your tongue's a bit too big for your mouth? And then all of a sudden you notice it and it becomes a really irritating problem. And also, I don't think if I had just played the game and I had seen nothing of all this pre-release content, I would describe Anthem as particularly buggy. Certainly not to the extent as maybe like launch day Skyrim or anything like that, which truly felt buggy. I would describe it, in my experience, as falling foul of the main issues that affect any kind of game that always wants to be online, because I have been disconnected in the middle of missions and found that deeply frustrating. But in my personal experience, and I do have to highlight my personal experience, I haven't had too many actual glitches, if I'm completely honest. So I would have described it as a game that I didn't like being online, but I wouldn't have said it was that glitchy. It is a bit of a performance hog, and that's something that I'm particularly sensitive to with these sorts of games where, I've got a 1080 Ti and i7, and it's really hard no matter where I put the settings at to get 60 frames per second. I know that would have bothered me, and people did talk about how this is a performance hog, but I would have noticed that because I'm particularly conscious of that. In terms of the story, it's all about perspective on this one. If you compare it to BioWare's past work, it is massively wanting, right? It is nowhere near something like Dragon Age, Origins, or even Inquisition. But if you compare it to, say, Launch Day Destiny, or I'm going to be honest, Launch Day Destiny 2, the storytelling is vastly superior. I really preferred the characters, and I found some of the people around Fort Tarsis to be quite interesting to listen to. When I wanted to just move on to the next story mission, it was a little bit frustrating, but sort of you can have fun just walking around Fort Tarsis and talking to people, and I did like the two main characters you had. I kind of wish they were going on missions with you more rather than just talking over the radio. I feel like this could have been a very strong single player game where your teammates were AI and you just had that relationship building up in the field. In fact, there's a part of me that thinks this game started like that and sort of got repurposed. So I do wonder if there's this sort of subconscious feeling where we have enhanced prejudice of a game if we get affected by other people's opinions. And people always talk about this if they are actual reviewers. I mean, I'm no reviewer, really. You always hear people say, oh, I don't want to listen to someone else's review because it might affect my opinion of the game. Now, you don't have to be a reviewer to suffer from this problem. You can just be the average gamer. And if you hear enough people say something's bad, it's really hard not to feel like it might be bad, because how can so many people be wrong? It's this really hard thing to shake. But on the other hand, I have to be careful with how I talk about this, because I may sound like I'm getting to the point where I'm going to say, and everyone's wrong, and actually Anthem's a fantastic game. No, it definitely has its problems, and it needs certain things sorting out, like right now. But it's just not terrible. It's not... I think maybe the best way to describe it is like a mediocre game. A simple, mediocre game. And I have nothing against mediocre games. Back in the PS2 era, you always got sort of games that weren't fantastic and they weren't amazing, but they were just good enough that you could put quite a few hours into them. You didn't expect much of them, and therefore you just enjoyed them. It was fine. But with Anthem, there has been this, initially massive expectation generated by the likes of EA and BioWare, where it was going to be this massive universe, and the initial E3 trailer made it look fantastic. So you had that sort of bias in your mind. So first of all, you're thinking, this game has to be amazing. And sort of the price you're paying goes into the background. You just think, this is going to be epic. That's your first thought. And then your second thought is when you start seeing all this pre-release footage, and it seems to be quite buggy and glitchy, and people are disconnecting, people are saying it's not really fun. You think, wait a second, they told me it was going to be the next big thing, and apparently it's actually terrible. This is awful, because I'm not just hearing it's not good, I'm hearing it's not good, thinking it was going to be the next big thing, so it gets even worse. And then when you go into the game, if you go into it at all, you might have chosen to skip the game by this point. You're thinking, yeah, this is rubbish. Oh, this is what they were talking about. I hate it. But I sort of wonder, what would you be thinking if you went into this game with sort of no expectations? I think you would be annoyed by certain components of it. I mean, it doesn't matter what I heard beforehand. I would be annoyed by the times I've disconnected from the EA servers. That is just annoying. There's no getting around that. But all the other stuff, I wonder what I would have thought, if I really had no mind going in. So this video hasn't been here to tell you that Anthem is massively misunderstood. Absolutely not. It's not here so that I can tell you it's terrible. It's just, I wonder, with this sort of hive mind that YouTube gives us, and indeed I am simply I'm just another voice on YouTube myself, but with this sort of hive mind we get, do we perhaps lose a bit of our own opinions in the grand scope of things? Just something to think about. So, as always, people, thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.